God, that intro gets me pumped up. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Kings of Bass Live with KVD, episode 3. We've got a great show planned for you tonight. We're going to be talking to, of course, Kevin Van Dam, and also talking with Mark Rose and Keith Combs. We're going to be previewing the upcoming Elite Series event on Lake Fork here in a couple of weeks. So looking forward to talking with Keith about that because there's always some double digits caught in that tournament. We're also going to be talking about a current event. We've got the Bass Pro Tour Stage 4 going on right now. So we'll have Kevin and Mark Rose talking about that. And then we're going to break it down into the post-spawn. We're going to be talking about, at least for me, one of the more challenging times of year. So for me, it basically comes down to talking about shallow water forage versus deep water forage. So we're going to let the experts talk about that. Real quick, I do want to mention the giveaways that we have going on here tonight. If you've followed the first 2 episodes of Kings of Bass Live, then you know the giveaways are a big part of the show, and we've got a couple of great ones here for you tonight. The first one is going to be a Mark Rose Signature Series jig and worm rod just released last year. An awesome rod. The second giveaway is going to be a $100 value prize pack of XD crankbaits. So we're going to be talking about crankbaits tonight. Spoiler alert. So we'll go ahead and bring on the man of the hour. See what if Kevin's on screen yet. Kevin, you there?
Hey, Tom. Yeah, man, I'm ready to go. Just getting ready to fish again tomorrow.
So. Oh, I know. Well, so we'll try to get you in and out of here because I know you got to get to bed and catch some fish in the morning. It's been a little bit of a hiatus. I'm glad we're back here together. I think we got about a month and a half of no Kings of Bass Live. So good to be back here. Good to be seeing your face here. I guess I heard that you had a little bit of a vacation time, which I'm sure is rare for you, and that you may have left the country.
Yeah, Sherry and I got to go to Puerto Vallarta for a week for spring break after the Bass Pro Shops World Fishing Fair. So that was nice. And, but now we're back on tour again here at Lake of the Ozarks. Denny Brower's home. This is, where Denny Brower grew up, and one of my, mentors and the guy that taught me a lot. And boy, I should need his help. After my first day, it sure didn't go the way I expected. We've had, a lot of changing conditions, and Mark and I both are in Group B, so we both compete again tomorrow. And we got, he had a pretty good first day. I'm right below the cut line, so I got to step it up. I had a really good practice, man, and I love this lake, but just with the high pressure and the falling water, I couldn't catch them. The way they were set up, I don't know. So, but today it looked like fishing was a lot better, and I think we got pretty good conditions tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to making a big move.
Well, good deal. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on Mark Rose because I know you guys both have some competitions to think about here tomorrow. So we'll get Mark on here. See if there he is. Hey, Mark.
Hey, guys. Can y'all hear me?
Loud and clear. How we doing?
Doing good. Getting ready for tomorrow. I've been listening. I've got Wesley Strader in the house, so I'm just warning everybody. You never know what can happen when Wesley Strader is in the building. But we just wrapped up dinner, and we're getting ready for fishing tomorrow. Like Kevin said, we were dealt with the first high sky day after a front, and I had a little better practice than what I had the first day of competition. And I'm hoping that this low pressure that we're getting now, as long as the lightning and things like that don't happen too bad tonight and tomorrow, that maybe we'll have a little better fishing day tomorrow than we had the first day.
Yeah. So, the rules for Major League Fishing, we're not allowed to, talk to any of the other competitors or watch any of the video or anything like that. But, the basic conditions, it's the 1st of May. The trees are budding out. I got allergies, just unbelievable. I mean, the oaks are just starting to bud out. The dogwoods are blooming. Everything's been cold this year across the country, so the lake is probably a little bit behind. But the water temperature is 58 to 60 degrees. It should be awesome, but a big part of it is these big fronts that we've had, and then the water's been fluctuating as well. So they've got it drawn down 4 feet for winter pool and spring rain. So them moving the water up and down so much, it just makes those fish fidgety, and then that high pressure, it definitely doesn't fit my style. If you want to fish moving baits, some of the guys are sight fishing in this event. but I chose definitely not to, thinking long term and looking at the weather forecast. And I just was quite amazed after the first day. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there tomorrow and seeing what we can put together, because my practice was a whole lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too.
So
Unfortunately, we're not supposed to see anything or hear anything or whatever, but we're staying on the lake, and we just happened to see Jesse Wiggins fishing all day. He fished within sight of us, so I'm kind of like Mark Davis. We can't unsee what we see, but I know that there's a lot of things going on, like Kevin said. I mixed it up a little the first day, caught some, doing a little bit of everything. So sight fishing and just
yeah,
regular fishing. But I really
well,
feel like the fishing is going to get better.
yeah. Well, everybody will be able to watch it live. It starts the live stream starts at 8 o'clock tomorrow. And, for both of us, it's about making that cut to make the knockout round. I'm like less than one scoreable out of the cut. And, nobody's really safe to this point. I mean, it looked like fishing was a lot better, but in a lot of the regions of the country, especially the South, I mean, it's post spawn and shad spawn and a lot of that going on. And I know how much you and I have talked a lot, how much you love to fish offshore. You're a crankbaiter at heart like me. I mean, you use whatever you have to, but the post spawn is, I mean, arguably, it's probably my favorite time of the year. And I think you would say the same, especially in the region of the country you live in. And, we've both fished a lot on the Tennessee River lakes, but really anywhere. It doesn't matter. The fish do the same things at any lake during the post spawn. It's just variables like power generation and current, and if it's got grass, or, what habitat it has, how the lake lays out, water clarity, how the fish set up. But my favorite way to catch them is cranking, and I'm pretty sure you're going to say the same thing. But it's an interesting time of the year, and people are fascinated when they see you pull up on a spot and just throw that 5XD or a 6XD out there, or whatever it is, and just go to catching them every cast. I mean, that's every angler's dream. Something that, fortunately, you don't get to experience as often as you'd like in tournaments, but boy, when you do, it's pretty special.
I know, man. Like you said, we don't get that experience a whole lot. And I fished the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit event, last week on Pickwick. And I can't tell you, Kevin, how much fun that was. It affected me in the tournament, okay? Because those fish, there was just a small percentage. They were spawning more than they were leaving and going offshore. And on the Tennessee River, they go out. They get out there pretty quick. And I found two spots where they were loaded, and I was catching them deep cranking, 6XD. I was throwing lots of 10XD, lots of different crankbaits, catching them. But the 6XD was a big player, and I can't tell you how much fun I had just feeling that. I mean, you're just grinding that thing. You know how you do, sweat pour when it's good, and all of a sudden, just that little. And I had so much fun, and it affected me because I knew what those big fish were doing, but I was having so much fun out there deep cranking that I spent too much time with it. But yeah, we don't get to do it enough. But when we do get to experience it, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, June is the prime month, but it really, I love to do that, but we have to do whatever we have to for the situation. And in a lot of areas right now, after these fish get off beds, they're still hanging around the shallows. They'll start getting around brim beds. The shad spawn's going to happen. It's happening in a lot of places. So you can catch them with a thunder cricket or a spinnerbait around, floating dock or riprap and stuff like that. And, all this is going on, just like you said at Pickwick. Heck, they're spawning and they're offshore, and that's the thing, is not all the fish are always doing the same thing. And what I try to do, and especially this time of year, is target the ones where they're coming to you. So that early, when they first get out there, that's when it's really special. And as the week goes on, especially if Mother Nature lines up and it keeps getting warm and more of those fish start leaving the shallows. on the Tennessee River, they go there quicker because of the current. On a natural lake like where I live up north, it's a slower process, but that current sucks them out there on any of those lakes. Whether it's a Coosa River to the Tennessee River, if it's got power generation and current. And nowadays it's really easy to, all you got to do is get your cell phone and you can look at the generation schedule. You can look at lake levels and follow it a lot closer. And our mapping is so much better. The Lake Master mapping on these places is just, it just makes it easier. We've got forward facing sonar and Mega 360 and all the tools make it so where it's not like it used to be where you had to go out there and just, graph around with just side imaging and, try to find these special spots. It's technology's made that process a lot easier and a lot more people are better at it, but it's still an art. You see that every time we go to one of those tournaments, like last year when we were at Chickamauga, anytime you go to Kentucky Lake, the guys that are really good at it do well. It's the same, if we were punching mats in Florida, those guys that really get a lot of experience at it shine. But during this post-spawn period of time, that's the trick, is knowing when to look for those offshore schools. And, it's my confidence thing. So that's what I love to do. And there's no better way than a crankbait, right? It's the most efficient thing you can throw for finding those schools. Now, once you've got them located, there's lots of stuff you can throw to trick some more, swim bait, a spoon, a Carolina rig, and a jig, a football jig, big worm, all that stuff. But my go-to is definitely a crankbait, and whatever depth range, it doesn't matter. I'm not married to a 6XD or a 10 or an 8 or a 5, or I've caught as much on Series 5.
I don't know if that's you guys or me, but I'm with service.
I think we're good.
I can still see you. Yeah, we're good.
We got you.
Can you hear us?
So
yeah, Kevin is frozen, and I didn't get the last part of what he said. He's frozen on the box on my.
I think that might be your internet, because I can see Kevin. I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Tom. I can hear you fine, Tom. I just can't hear Kevin. And he's not moving. He's just frozen on his box. Let me, I tell you what, let me move, see if I can move outside.
So one question I do have for you,
we'll
Kevin,
let him
and
get
Mark.
set up.
Well, I'll see if that helps. I can still see him. I see you, Kevin. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's
he's
Mark.
freezing up. Yeah, I think
It's on my end. I'm trying to go outside to see if this is helping. Kevin is still frozen.
Huh.
Maybe we should try reconnecting him.
And my internet bars, the Wi-Fi looks good. I don't know.
So, hey, Mark, will you try re-logging back in again? I'm going to actually take you off the screen and bring you back on.
Well, it's interesting because Mark's all excited. He loves to fish offshore ledges, cranking. He's got stuff he wants to show. We're giving away a Mark Rose Signature Series rod, and he designed for fish, for a worm jig out there. I have my own series of crankbait rods. He does as well. It's interesting how we each have a little different preference in our tackle. It's the same. If you talk with Brent Chapman,
how's that,
and
guys?
what he likes to throw under cricket with, and what I like, gear ratio wise, is a little bit different. We all have Combs is the same way. We all have our little differences, but we do all love to do the same things. And this post-spawn period is it's one of my favorite times of the year. I've had a lot of success in this time frame, whether it's Texas or Alabama or New York or Michigan or whatever. It's not as hard as a lot of people make it think. You just have to understand the body of water, and then really what which the fish are in. Where the majority of the population is at. Because you don't have to catch hundreds. but there's got to be enough fish
How is it now, Tom?
in that particular zone to make it viable as a tournament angle. And first getting out there, even though a lot of fish are still up on the bank, um, it's just real viable. So like a few years back, I won an elite event at Toledo Bend, and I started every morning on the shad spawn. And once the sun got up,
Let's reload.
I ended up winning it with a 10XD. But I wouldn't have won that tournament if I wasn't catching some of those fish on the shed spawn
You guys
as
got me
well.
now?
So there's never just one answer. I mean, you can always do it both, and a lot of it has to do with your own style and your
Let's log
personal
off and go back.
preference. There's no right or wrong. It's what you enjoy and what you're experienced with to go. But it's so much easier now with the quality of our electronics, our rods, reels, baits. Technology has made us so much more efficient at fishing for those unseen, unknown, offshore, structured places.
Yeah, and I know that fishing offshore can be, intimidating because you got to dial in your electronics, find these schools of fish. So taking it back to the spawn, basically, once those fish, they're done doing their thing, and then you start seeing those big females move off, and you see the males fry guarding, and it's kind of a weird transition period. I know you see a lot of what people call like wolf packs of cruising bass. So like what's going on during that phase? I mean, as they're kind of transitioning from the beds, to chase bluegill or going offshore.
Well, a lot of that has to do with the type of lake, but bluegill beds are always
you hear
a
me
center
now,
of
Tom?
activity for especially those pair females. I mean, there's some, just like some live in the valley, some live in the mountains, and some fish never go deep all year long. They have a different personality, but a lot of those fish will wolf pack and head offshore, and they're going to go there because that's where the shad are. And if the lake has a big population of gizzard shad, for instance, those bass that's the focal point. That's what they're going to do. But you go to Falcon, and there's a lot of shad in there, and there's a lot of gizzard shad, but it's tilapia. So it's all about what the primary forage is in the system. When you see it in the southeast in the blueback herring lakes, those fish are really goofy. They go off they get off the bank, but they're just chasing those pods of herring around and pushing them up on points and things like that. So it's really always forage driven first and foremost, and then you just got to look at the lake conditions, the water clarity, the current. If there is current is always going to be key. If there's current, the bass are going to gravitate to it. They use it to their advantage to set up and feed. I love like the Coosa River. For that it's dirty. Those spotted bass get off on the main river shoals and sandbars and things like that. And it can be real tricky. I mean, they get on real subtle stuff, but they're just focused on finding a place that they can set up and ambush shad as the current brings them food. And fertile places like that. The Tennessee River is the same way. Gunnersville sets up way different than Kentucky Lake or Pickwick, just because of the differences in the type of grass. So, we have a grass lake with current. It just, they're all different in their own way, but the bass are doing the same general things, as far as making that transition to where they're going to spend the summer and they're going where the food's at.
So Kevin, give me your top three. This is probably impossible for you to narrow it down, but three, if it was shad spawn, you had to pick three baits. What are you picking up?
For sure. My number one shad spawn bait is still a spinner bait, a KVD, half ounce double willow spinner bait. Love to throw it around riprap, floating docks. If there's flooded bushes, there's grass, if they shad spawn and all of that. Look for the birds. The shad spawn, the dead giveaway of that, and it happens basically at night. And so you got a window early in the morning to capitalize on that shad spawn. It's usually near the main lake, and a spinner bait is just hard to beat because the shad will follow the blades of that spinner bait and it'll tip you off to where they're at. So look for herons, look for gulls, look for cormorants. See, if you're seeing a lot of birds, egrets, there's going to be a shad spawn happening. and then it's just a matter of finding where the bass set up on on those shad. Second, number two would be a thunder cricket. So, white thunder cricket is hard to beat because it's so skippable. So I'm going to put it on a Pro SP skipping reel, and you can skip it around those docks, underneath boats, and marinas are a hub of shad spawn activity. They're usually got deeper, and they'll definitely be around them a lot. And it's just a great setup. Another key bait for the shad spawn, obviously, it's hard to just have three. A ray swimmer is another good bait. I'll use a jerk bait in certain situations a little bit during it. It's all shad imitating baits, and you just got to pick the one that you can present around that area. And then obviously a sexy dog is another one, or a KVD splash popper, a topwater. You can use a buzz bait in a lot of situations too, but just depends on the cover, what you're targeting the shad spawn around to, what's going to be the most efficient bait to throw on it. So usually I'm going to have all of them rigged up, and whatever bank you're on, or whatever target you're throwing at, you use the one that's the most efficient to pry that cover apart.
Good deal. Yeah, I know that. And I don't know if this is a characteristic of the shad spawn necessarily, but I know that shade is always, when you're looking at a spawn for bluegill, something you definitely want to key in on.
Well, you do, and so low light conditions will lengthen it in the morning. You get a cloudy day, it'll last a little longer. So they basically do it at night, and you will see it really get heated up on the full moon. The shad spawn on the moon the same as the bass do, and the bluegill and everything like that. So you'll see that, and yeah, if you can find shade on the lake, those that'll stay a little bit longer before they move out. And the shad spawn lasts 3 weeks to a month on just about any lake. So it starts real slow, gets to a frenzy, to a peak, and then it just slowly tapers out. And lakes that have big populations of shad, obviously it can be pretty intense. Some of the best fishing of the year, and I mean it's great because you can get off to a great start in the morning. You can get out there and fish that first hour or two. He's back.
He's back.
I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. It's storming out here on the lake, and our Wi-Fi signal is really strong, but the internet, something's wrong with it, so we're going off of Wesley's phone. Sorry about that.
Looks good. So we were talking about the shad spawn while you were gone, and so you came back at the perfect time, because now we're moving into the deep water, talking about cranking, talking about when I would say in tandem with your jigs, Carolina rigs, and all that, how you break down whether it's a ledge, anything offshore, basically what you're thinking when you're going out looking for fish offshore, and what your strategy is.
Yeah, that ledge term was coined over on the Tennessee River, around Kentucky Lake, but the ledge fishing it's basically just offshore fishing, and whether you're fishing a lake, a highland reservoir, whatever, there's ledge fishing, basically just post spawn, when those fish and shad and bluegill and everything start to get done with their spawning process. It's kind of where those fish go to load up, and it'll be good all the way until the hot part of the summer, when the lake starts stratifying and things start getting funky right before a good fall bite. And so deep offshore post spawn fishing, like Kevin said earlier, I really love a 6XD, 8XD, 10XD to once I've located those fish. And it's all about your electronics, man. It's spending the time finding them, and then catching them is sometimes the easiest part. I really like to run the gamut with baits, but a 6XD, 8XD, and 10XD are just bait. Even a 5XD are baits that I'm going to make some of my first casts, and it's what you're going to do a lot of your damage with. But I really love throwing the Strike King football jig whenever I see those fish down there deep. It's one of my first casts a lot of times. I heard you guys talking about a swim bait. I love the Rage Swimmer, even the Shadowlicious. I've won a lot of money whenever you find those big schools of fish out there and you're throwing a lot of baits and they're just nipping at it, or you're catching a lot of 3-pounders on a 6XD. I'll take that great big shadalicious on a 3/4 or 1 ounce head. And a lot of times it'll catch because I feel like there's some big fish in a lot of those schools. You just have to figure out how to trigger those bigger fish. And sometimes that'll catch you the biggest fish in the school. It's kind of like a big one just kind of showing up and showing everybody how it's done, but it takes a big bait to agitate them. So, yeah, ledge fishing can be done anywhere. It's basically just finding the offshore structure and and speaking of structure, this house that we're in, where you guys are in, an architect designed a place for high percentage areas. They do, a kitchen, a refrigerator, a bathroom, your front door, your back door, all of that is offshore under the water that we can't see, because we all know if there's a willow tree there, that's a high percentage area. Well, there's those willow trees and those front doors and kitchens and all that kind of stuff offshore that our eyes can't see. And that's where we use our electronics to really find those high percentage areas, big groups of fish. And man, the fun part is running the gamut with lures, because like Kevin said, there's some days they really like a 6XD, football jig, hair jig, swim baits of every size, shape, sort with blade. It's just gotten so, and that's why I love offshore ledge fishing, because you can never have it completely figured out. In about 2009, it kind of revamped my career, because I became good friends with some people along the Tennessee River, and I started getting into it, learning about it, and then I took that, tried to take it to a next level and expanding on it, and it's just you'll never completely figure it out. It's an ongoing thing that is just it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, let's just say, I think the fascination for the weekend angler that doesn't spend the time when they watch us on a tournament, and just go out there and just catch them like that, just cast after cast, doubles and stuff. It's hard to do that, and it's the one time of the year when you can absolutely, uh, you know, make some crazy moves. In our format, last year it's the first event like that I fished, and on the championship day, man, I got onto them late in the day. They turned the water on a little bit, and those fish set up, and I went from just decent to having a huge lead in a hurry, because I was just catching them every cast. And when you get that school fired up, you just have to capitalize on those windows like that. And that's what we spend all day out there for a couple of those flurries like that, and that's what makes it fun to me.
Well, and you guys both have signature series rods. Obviously, Mark, you've got the one that just came out with the full line of signature series, the 711 deep cranking rod. And Kevin, you've got your 6, the CC model cranking, which is a composite. And then, Mark, yours is graphite. I guess what kind of went into the design there, and what, preferences, or I guess like personal preferences did you put into the design of those rods?
Well, for me, the signature series, we had it in the Team Loose Custom Pro the last few years, and I brought what I liked in that rod and that design of that rod and that blank, basically the action and everything that went into it, into the signature series, because I personally really like, and it's because that's what I got used to. That's what I learned to deep crank with, was graphite. I really like that feel where I'm feeling everything. And so I wanted to start with the handle. This is not, this is a jig worm rod, but for illustration, I don't like on my crankbait rod, I didn't want too long of a handle here. I see so many crankbait rods out there that, yeah, it might be 710, and you need that length for leverage to be able to launch the bait good, and to be able to, when you're setting on your front deck and you're reeling, you want that rod tip to be really close to the water. You don't want it to, be way up, because you want that. And that's the thing about a 6X, our entire XD lineup, it gets down quick and it stays down all the way right under your boat. I love to see, before we had forward facing sonar and we just had 2D, I would reel it up always, make a habit to reel it right under my transducer. And with a 6XD and the entire XD line, it would stay down really close to there. So 2 reasons for the length would be the launch and to actually, get your rod in position where you can crank effectively all the way to the boat. So I didn't want on a 710, 711 rod, if your handle is here, you don't have your length that you need because it's all wasted in here. Once you make a good grip, when you grab your reel and you just comfortably, however you cast, put your hand right there, you don't want a lot back here. You don't want this much rod because it's, in my opinion, it's just wasted. So the handle length, the handle design, the comfort, the number of eyelets, the action here, I wanted a fairly good, not stiff, but good enough to be able to set the hook way out there because a fish can suck a crankbait in and blow it out really quick. So there's just lots of things. The action of that bait, I feel like this part of the rod, the last 20% of it is where I get my protection of my 12-pound line, which is what I crank a 6XD with 90% of the time. That protects me from a freight training fish when it's close to the boat, and it protects my line and just helps me. So I've gotten used to that graphite and on my crankbaits, but gosh, I've watched David Fritz and Kevin Van Dam really, that may be what they got used to early on cranking. And I think it's just like anything else. It's whatever a fisherman really had, whatever he gets comfortable with early on. And then it's just repetition and getting that good feel for it.
Yeah, the handle length is 100% spot on. My rod, my favorite rod for throwing a 6XD is that CC6. It's a composite rod, so it's a blend of graphite and glass, which to me gives me the best of both worlds. I get the feel of the graphite, but I get that slower reaction time when you're burning it on a ledge or on a drop or a shell bed, or you deflect off a stump. It gives your bait a little bit different action, and it's again, it's what I really got used to. Originally it was e-glass, which is lightweight, and it was fairly sensitive for what it was. But when we've got these composites, it just made the rod so much better. They're lightweight, they got a lot of power, because they react a little slower. You don't have to put as much energy. I mean, I could throw a 6XD 60 yards lobbing it, and it physically makes it easier to do. And there's a lot of advantages, but it's what I've gotten used to. And it's not just the rod, it's the rod, reel, line, the bait, and hooks that are on the bait that make the system for me. And that's what I mentioned before we had you on, that we all have a little different preferences, but we're all pretty much doing the same thing. Whether it Combs, what he likes to crank with is a little different. I mean, a lot of guys like high speed ratios. I don't like a super high speed ratio, but I do reel the bait real fast. I mean, it's what I've gotten used to for my system, and it's worked really well for me. And that's what everybody will learn. Is that, hey, when you get these rods that are designed for these techniques, it's going to help you. It's like a good set of golf clubs, and you get the right fairway driver. You can hit it straight, you can hit it far, and it's just got to fit and balance for you. And everybody physically is a little bit different in their stature and their size. The fish, how high the deck is off the wall, all that makes a difference for a jerkbait rod or a topwater rod or a crank rod. And that's why we make the different series. We've got all of them. There's the right setup for every angler out there. We at Lew's, we dang sure offer it: the reel, the rod, the line, and then the baits. And that's why we all have our different signature series, and they're all a little bit different. And then people experiment, or you can go to Bass Pro Shops and check them out, or go to the local tackle store and see what fits your particular style and the lake that you're in. But it is the right tool. You've got to have the right tools.
Yeah, and none of it's wrong, by the way. That's a great illustration with golf clubs. There's guys that are winning golf tournaments. Some of them may use a totally different club for a certain shot or different materials or whatever. When I played college baseball, some guys playing the same position to me might have a different length glove or a different shape of glove or something. And it's just whatever you get used to and what you're successful with. Obviously Kevin is certainly successful. I have had success doing it using a little bit different rod, but none of it's wrong. It's just whatever, it's however you choose to go about it.
Yeah.
Very good. Mark, one thing you mentioned was, the architect, how basically there's key parts of any spot where you're going to have that big fish, and taking that to, talking about, a ledge or any offshore spot. And the question of current, it's always an equation of why are these fish here? Why are they feeding now versus why are they not feeding? Why are they on this position of the ledge or versus the top? How does current play a factor on where fish are positioning on a ledge? Why does it matter?
Well, bass use current to feed, and that there's power generated current, there's wind current, a natural current, there's boat traffic current. There's a lot of different ways fish use current, but they're always using it, and whether it's a smallmouth, a spotted bass, or a largemouth, to feed. And they know, like say on a TVA power generated lake, that just like we know at around 6 o'clock ish, we're gonna start thinking about supper 5:30. It's the same way on they know when that they feel that current, they get used to a generation schedule, and they just use it to feed. It blows bait by them, and they set up on ambush points, whether it's a shell bed, a stump, what have you, and they use current to feed. Man, that is one of the key factors of their feeding.
We're looking for intersections out there, where a creek channel dumps into a ridge intersecting it from, downriver, and, it's junction points where they travel routes, just like deer use fence roads to travel, bass, follow creek channels or these drops where 2 points come together. It can be a great spot. And sometimes it's 3 or 4, it all varies, but that's what we're looking for, is that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, one more question I have for you, Mark, because I know we got to wrap this up so you guys can get on the water tomorrow and get a good night's sleep. But when it comes to jigs, the other side of this equation, also another signature series rod that you have, what goes into the Perfect Jig Rod?
Well, I designed this jig worm rod for one jig in particular, and that was the 1 ounce Strike King tour grade football jig. I throw a 1 ounce football jig more than I throw a 3/4, but it was designed for a 3/4 and 1 ounce. But none of the rods out there where I felt like had enough here to throw that 1 ounce and be effective on a long cast setting a hook. And so I designed this rod a 7.2 heavy, and it might be a smidget stiffer than what a lot of people would throw a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce football jig with, but it works really well for me. It's a long cast thing. If you're short casting with this rod, it might be a little too stiff for you with a football jig, making small cast. But to me, a football jig is more for making really long casts with 15, 17 pound fluorocarbon. And I needed something to be able to set the hook with a 1 ounce football jig way out there. And I needed a little more backbone than traditional rods that people would throw a football jig on. And then I realized that it's so versatile, just like our entire signature series. I've got Kevin's spinnerbait rod that I'm throwing a little small jig on here, even here in the Ozarks, which a jig I love to throw in the Ozarks is a little finesse, 1/4 ounce finesse tour grade football jig. I'm throwing his spinnerbait rod with 12-pound line with that setup. So I use that illustration to say that this rod, I can take it and pitch, put on a 3/8 ounce Strike King tour grade tungsten weight and a KVD grip pin hook 3/0, and I can pitch a menace around or a mid-sized rage bug. I'll go to a 4/0 hook and throw a regular rage bug, and it's just a really good rod that I can pitch around docks and things like that. So it's very our entire signature lineup is the most versatile lineup of rods I've ever seen. Andy Montgomery's skipping rod, his 7-foot, I probably have more of that rod in my boat than anything. I throw a Thunder Cricket on it. I throw a Sexy Dog on it. I throw so many things on so many different rods. So but this particular rod, again, the handle length, all that, I didn't want a bunch of weight back here. I kept it to 7.2 because I need a little bow in my line out there. Whenever I'm working that football jig and counting those rocks, and really, I didn't want a bunch of weight to impede the sensitivity. And speaking of sensitivity, I can't believe how Strike King or how Lou's accomplished sensitivity in such a durable rod. These rods are very durable. They're everything about them is just right, and the durability and sensitivity is there. And I can't say I can talk forever about it. It's just a really well-rounded lineup. I think we've got every technique accomplished there, and I don't think there's anything that you can't find in this lineup. Love them.
Well, Mark, I pulled a Bill Dance and slammed one of those in my truck bed the other day, and it did not break. So yes, they are durable. I got 4 of your Signature Series worm and jig rods, so they're awesome. Really appreciate you taking some time to be with us here tonight, and best of luck tomorrow. And looking forward to doing this again, hopefully sometime soon.
Okay,
yep, we'll
thanks,
see you out
guys.
there.
You bet.
Yep.
Break a leg, Kevin. See
yeah. Well, that was that's good. It's a fascinating time of the year. People, it's probably one of the most unknown by a lot of the just weekend fishermen, people that don't spend a lot of time on the water. It's a hard time to understand, but gosh, it's one of my favorites. I love the post ball.
Well, I have a hard time understanding it, Kevin, so I really appreciate you being here tonight. So I've learned a lot already. We're going to bring on Keith here because we got a really good cranking lineup tonight. I mean, probably 3 of the best guys in the world to be talking about it. I do want to remind our viewers to be part of the giveaway. Make sure you're following, you're subscribed to Kings of Bass TV. Kevin's just got an episode that dropped on there talking about the J300 Elite jerk bait. So really, really interesting episode. It's on there now. If you're still got a hankering for some YouTube, when we're done with this, you can go watch that episode right now, Kings of Bass TV. But we're going to bring on the man here. He's a member of the Bassmaster $1 Million Club, and he's on his 12th year in the Bassmaster Elite Series. Keith Combs, what's up, man?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing good, man. You have got to be just chomping at the bit with Lake Fork coming up for the time of the year. We've been talking tonight about post spawn fishing and offshore structure and deep cranking and what it's one of the best summertime structure lakes out there, and you've owned that place. And those Toyota Texas Bass Classics, you've done really, really well down there. So you got to be pretty excited. I know it's harder now because the Lake Master map is so good of it, and you've taught a lot of people how to fish it, where to fish it, the different things you got to do. But still, it comes down to execution. But you have definitely been the man there at Lake Fork. So I'm sure this is one you marked on your calendar and said, "Yep, that's one I'll have a chance to win."
Yeah, Fork has really been a good lake for me, Kevin, over the years, and it's that right time of year. We've been here the last few years a little bit earlier than this. Higher winds and muddy conditions this year. We're warm in Texas. I've been on Rayburn all day, and things are starting to change big time there. So I like Lake Fork sitting up. But like you mentioned earlier, we've been there a lot of times, and the mapping is very, very good nowadays. So it definitely gets more difficult, but it's still one that I'm definitely looking forward to.
Yeah. So one thing about Lake Fork, we we fished there earlier this year in a Bass Pro Tour event, and the lake was like 6 feet low. Is it? I haven't, looked at the water level lately. Is it still down? Oh my God. Yeah. When you have low water, that's going to, it's just going to put more of those fish offshore because none of that gator grass or, that bank grass, because normally you can still catch some on a frog around the bank and you catch some around docks and stuff. But if it's low, all those fish are going to be offshore. They're going to be out in the standing timber and they're going to be relating to that. So that bodes well for the guys that are really good at structure fishing. You there, Keith?
Yeah, so yeah, it's still low. It's come up some, I do believe, but it's. I think we may see more of a. In the past we've caught them on a lot of clean spots and hard spots out there in the open. This year, we might see with the technology that we have on our boats now, maybe we'll see timber play a little bit more. Plenty of that in Lake Fork, and that's something that I hope finding something a little bit different is going to be key this year.
Yeah, no doubt. One thing that I've always, or the last few times that I fished fork during that offshore time, and you know how much I love the crank, and I know how much you do too. The white bass population has gotten so thick out there, and there's so many in there. I mean, even a 10XD, they attack it. Obviously you still catch bass and stuff on them, but boy, if you get around those white bass, it can be pretty darn annoying.
Yeah,
so Keith, I think the
they
last
use
time
the same spots, and like I'm practicing for the Toyota series on Rayburn.
Go
Right
ahead,
now,
Keith.
and
It's a little
Rayburn's
delayed.
really gotten full of them too, and Rayburn, Toledo. I guess we got a little delay here, but about those white bass. I mean, man, they have really got in all of our kind of northeast Texas lakes. A lot of times they get on the same type of spots, and sometimes you just have to weed through them. Sometimes there's no large nothing at school. But it's just kind of part of the game. But it seems like they change every year.
Yeah, no doubt. So it should be a really fun one to watch. Anytime that there's live bass fishing, live stream bass fishing on Lake Fork, you're good. I mean, in cast, you got a chance to catch a 13-pounder, a ShareLunker, type bass, and for sure there's going to be a lot of there's a lot of Great Lakes in Texas, but I don't know that there's any place that has as many 6 to 10 pounders in it for the size of it as Lake Fork. It's just got such incredible quality. When we were there earlier this year in that real cold period, I was amazed at how healthy those fish were. For that time of year, I think with this low water, it's really helped them congregate a lot of the bait and a lot of their forage, and those fish are in better shape than I've seen them ever when I've gone there. They reminded me of California bass, the way they were built. You could catch a 16-incher and that sucker be 3.5 pounds, 3 3/4 pounds, or maybe even 4 pounds. I mean, they're just the fattest I've ever seen, and I think it's good for a lake to have a drawdown like that. To let the bank stuff grow up and concentrate that forage a little bit. So it should be. That's one that if you're a bass fishing fan, you definitely want to watch Bassmaster Live. You guys are because first and foremost, you're going to learn a lot about offshore fishing from these guys, and I think with Mega Live, now that you've got Mega Live, everybody's got forward-facing sonar and Mega 360. You can see things that we never knew. We were guessing. You can find the timber, you can find those places, but now you can see when a bass is following your bait, or if there's a whole pot of white bass there, or crappie, or whatever it is. It just adds a whole new dimension to it. And some of these guys have really just focused completely on that and really taken it to another level. I still like to to fish still, so to speak. I don't totally trust that. As far as telling me if there's fish there or not, I've already learned, around that timber, it's very easy for even a 6 or 8 pounder to hide in a tree where you can't just scan over there and see them with my Mega Live. But you throw a bait there, you see them move out, and it's like, oh, then you know when to twitch your jerk bait, or you know when to stop your crankbait. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this year.
So Keith, if you've got 3 baits, we're talking about brush piles here. You're a brush pile connoisseur, I would say. You know how to dial them in and locate them and know which ones to fish. If you had 3 baits to break down a brush pile post spawn on Lake Fork, what are you picking up?
Just brush pile baits, I would say my top 3. Number 1, probably a 8XD. That's a good for stuff that's in that 16 to 18 foot range. 8XD is really good, buoyant, walks through the brush really good, and it's a big bait. You know, it's something I can put number 1 hook on or 1/0 hooks on, and that's one of my favorites for cranking brush. But probably my is a Strike King structure jig. I was listening earlier when you guys were talking about the football jig and Strike King, 2 great football jig. I love to throw that, but not in brush. That structure jig when you're fishing lakes like Fork and Toledo Bend and Rayburn, where we're fishing a lot of timber. Football jig is just it's not great around wood. That structure jig does a great job coming through that, and you know usually just match that with a Rage Pro and a 1 ounce. A lot of times just big heavy one bites good for me. And if they won't hit one of those 2, I'll switch up to usually an 8-inch bullworm, and that's my arsenal. Just about any time I'm fishing brush ball. Honestly, just about any time I'm fishing offshore. Throw a 6XD in there, and I'm happy.
Yeah, that SG series for sure. I mean, it is the gold standard in offshore deep crankbaits. It's the most copied series out there by other manufacturers, but I mean, there's only one. And now that we have all these options, you know, you can get a silent 6XD, you can have a standard 6XD, and then now the 6XD hard knock. And I have become a big fan of the hard knock series. You know, I mean, I've got it in a 1.5. And I always liked the silent bait for sure, and I still throw a lot of silent 6XDs. But that hard knock, it's just a unique, different sound, especially if there's a little color in the water at all. I found it to be that whole series to be just exceptional.
Does the hard knock just present like a different sort of tone that
Yeah,
they're just not
that's
used
good.
to?
Go ahead, Keith. There's a little bit of a delay, so we just waiting on you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Kevin has a great point. I mean, just little things like the bait, from the hard knock to the silent to the original one. Those things matter because a lot of times, as any tournament fisherman knows, it's usually a very small margin of between winning and losing, and 1 or 2 extra fish are key. And these schools of fish or places that we're fishing, they get beat up so hard with electronics. Everybody things like a silent bait versus a regular 6XD are now the new hard knock. I mean, it's big dividends to have all 3 tied on. If I'm throwing my main station blue, I got them all tied on just to mix up and just see if I can get 1 or 2 fish, extra fish to react.
Yep. Well, we'll definitely be all watching the coverage for it. I'm sure you're going to be one of the favorites for sure. Day one, they'll have a camera in your boat to start out with, just because of your history there, man. You've just had so much success, not just at Lake Fork, but really all over Texas. You are the Texas master, especially that time of year. So we look forward to it. Wish you good luck, and man, it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
I think he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, well, Keith.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm looking forward to it. It's a phenomenal it's amazing that little lake just holds up. But we've seen how good it can be.
Yeah, well, it's going to be good, but again, I love Texas as well. One of the things I look forward to every year that you and I get to do. I've gotten to know you a lot better since we've been going to Whoville down there. So, if that's a great area down there too, to fish Choke Canyon. That's an awesome lake there as well. But Whoville Ranch for whitetail hunting is second to none. I mean, I love deer hunting a lot of places, but there's no place like Texas, and there's no place like Whoville. So look forward to that again. I'm sure I'll see you down there. But in the meantime, we'll watch you there. Let you get on with your evening. We're going to get going. I've got to fish in the morning, so and our time's close to up. So appreciate you being on, and good luck at 4.
Thanks, Keith.
Hey, Tom.
Thank y'all, and good luck.
All right.
Good luck
I didn't want to just hang up on him because I know there's a little delay, but all right. So
it's always challenging with technology. You got to have great service and signal, but we're learning. King of Bass Live will get better and better as we go. I'm really looking forward to make it even better next year. We've got a lot of big plans in mind. So for any of you that have watched our first few episodes, you're going to see a lot more. We're going to integrate a lot more video and things like that going forward in the future. And of course, giveaways are always going to be a big part of it. We've got some for sure tonight. I know you're at the bit to get some of that going too.
Oh yeah, we'll go ahead and knock these out, Kevin, because I know you got a little bit of a sinus thing. Sounds like try to get some sleep and go catch some bass tomorrow. So our first winner. Now this is from the YouTube side. Viewers on YouTube on the Kings of Bass TV are watching from Kevin's channel. This is from Mark Rose Signature Series Worm and Jig Rod, and that winner is Jacob Schultz Outdoors. So we'll be reaching out to you, Jacob. We'll get your contact email, and we'll get that shipped out to you. So the second winner, and this is $100 worth of XD crankbaits, and you should know how to use them now, is Larry Page. Larry Page on Facebook. So we'll reach out to you. We'll get that over to you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those
all right.
6XDs, man, they're the juice. That's the gold standard for offshore, summertime fishing, man. It's a great bait. Cast it a long ways, gets down there. They bite it better. I love that time of year.
Do you have any idea what your career winnings are just on a 6XD, Kevin?
Oh, I've got a pretty good record at Kentucky Lake, but it's all up and down the Tennessee River for sure, but also, Toledo Bend, and I just love that time of year, but I've catch them up north with it too. It's just such a fantastic bait for that deeper zone. Obviously you can fish them in 16, 17 to water, but with the setup that I use, I can get a 6XD down to 2 foot, 23 foot, just because it's casts well. You put that on BB1 Pro and a CC6, and it's a launching pad. That's what we call them, launchers. Because that's half the battle, man. It's got such a steep dive angle. It's going to get down there quick, and it stays on the bottom, like Mark was saying. I love having that, right up to underneath the boat. When it lifts off the bottom, that's one of the key times when you'll trigger a lot of bass to bite, is right when it comes off the bottom there, right by the boat. So now with forward facing sonar, Humminbird Mega Live, you can see it. That's one of the most amazing things that I've noticed with my Mega Live transducer, is the way I've got it set up. I can see right under the trolling motor, even though I'm looking out at 100 feet too. So it really has changed things for fishing a jerkbait and a crankbait for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. Every single year there's something else that comes out and just takes it to a completely different level. But Kevin, we did it. 9 o'clock, exactly an hour.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Good deal. All right. Well, good luck tomorrow, Kevin. And hopefully, I think you're in 21st right now, so you got a little work to do, but you'll get it done.
I got to get after it tomorrow, but I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for there we go. Bless you. That's a good way to end it. Should have just ended it right there. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you being here. For everybody who's watched Kings of Bass Live so far, this year. Looking forward to doing a lot more of these and talking to you guys all here soon.
See you, buddy. Have a good night.
All right. See you too, Kevin. Bye.